This is Gerardo Del Real with my co-host, Mr. Nick Hodge, and this is episode 18 of Bizarro World. It is truly a bizarro world, Nick. We have Starbucks cups in fucking Game of Thrones episodes. Baby Archie is here, the royal baby. Burger King has rolled out Emo Meals. Donald Trump has decided to impose more tariffs on China. The farmers may not know it yet, but I get the feeling that they will be upset. The IRS has officially recognized the Satanic Temple as a church. A lot going on here, Nick. Before all that, let's take a second and say happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I'm fortunate enough to be surrounded by incredible women in my life, so happy Mother's Day to them. Anything to say on that front, Nick?
That was going to be one of my positive stories for the week. Happy Mother's Day to my mother and my grandmother, and as you say, all the other wonderful mothers out there, and of course to my wife, who we just took to lunch on, as we say, we record on Friday, so we just got back. She got a little lunch. We're contrarian. We do lunch on Friday instead of brunch on Sunday to avoid the crowd. And that's how we do.
I love it. I love it. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Let's talk markets. Let's talk there. Let's start there. You know, I mentioned up top that there's a lot going on with Starbucks cups and the IRS and all sorts of things. But let's talk gold. We spoke last week. You were a bit skeptical that gold would hold. You were cautiously pessimistic, I think I would call it. I was cautiously optimistic. 1 week does not make a market, and frankly, nothing much happened. It really just kind of held that 1284 level that I see as key, right? Between 1274 and 1284. Thoughts there before we talk about tariffs in China and the Trumpster?
I broke up with gold for the week. We're not speaking, so I'm glad nothing happened. As you said, it just got a little ping pong or whack-a-mole, if you will, back and forth, right in the range there, right? High 60s to 80s back and forth. So we're not talking.
I don't blame you. You know who is talking, though? The majors. We have another big investment, strategic investment. Newmont came in for 17.6 million Canadian on GT Gold. So that was interesting. It seems like every week that we do this podcast, we're talking about a major or a mid-tier, although lately, frankly, it's been the majors that are coming in and taking pretty significant stakes. I always say that the majors are not the smart money, but in this bear market, I find it extremely prudent of them to be coming in and taking these big stakes in these juniors that are going to be, frankly, the companies that are going to be providing the supply for the next bull cycle, right? Any thoughts on that front? Do you expect more M&A?
I do, and the companies are saying as much, but I wanted to say that it's just still evident of where we are in the cycle and the pre-bull market or the end of the bear market, that these deals are getting done at a premium, but the stocks aren't going there. The GTT deal that was done this week was done higher than the stock went to. I believe it was done, well over $1, and the stock, went there and then pulled back a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. And they're just not really going like they would in a bull market when deals like this are announced. But there's going to be more M&A. We saw Mr. Bristow from Barrick say as much. He's looking not only to
Elephant Hunter Bristow. Sorry to interrupt.
That's right. Big game hunter and poser. And he says he's not only looking to shed what he considers not tier one assets, but he's looking to make some deals as well. And he makes no qualms about what he considers to be good assets. He's looking at like B2Gold's asset in Mali, for example. And again, look at B2Gold, a company that just delivered some decent earnings, and that one of the largest gold companies senior executives is talking about openly acquiring, and it should be going northbound better than it is. Just we're not in that environment yet where talk like that would send stocks upward. We're just not there yet, and those would be my thoughts.
Agreed. Back to that GT Gold pricing, it was $1.53 per flow through share. Shares currently trade at 91 cents. So that's the market we have right now, everybody.
And you'll get a bit of a discount for flow through because it's Canadian with the tax thing, et cetera. But still, 150 to 90 cents is quite a discount.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk Bitcoin. I think we have to talk cryptos a little bit every week. The price keeps going higher. We talked about 6,000 being resistance. I think last week everybody celebrated the fact that it broke 5. It's convincingly broke through the 6,000 level. We are now at 6,400 Bitcoin. I don't believe that's going to help the junior space that I dedicate myself to. But I do believe it will help the one non-resource related company that I have a pretty big stake in, by my measure, and that's and we've spoken about this company over and over repeatedly. I'm going to continue to say it because I think it's a bargain. Hydro 66, which is highly leveraged to crypto prices, anything above 4,000 Bitcoin, and has a solid, stable business model to underpin it, unlike many of its peers.
I wrote about it this week in the letter. They added another client this week that was not even a Bitcoin client. It was a IT security sort of alarm data storage type company in Sweden that had 15 companies. So yes, well diversified. You mentioned before we got on the horn that Bitcoin is at 6,400, so definitely cash flow positive when they turn on their mining machines. And we know that Hive has had some trouble, which is the go-to name in the industry. And a neighbor of Hydro 66 has had problems with their landlord and is looking for a new home, if you will. And so there might be something that comes of that. And um, for the past week at least, Hydro has kept pace, if not outpaced, Bitcoin because of its leverage. I haven't done the math on Bitcoin at 6,400, but Bitcoin from about 5,100 to 6,000 in the past week, Hydro outpaced it. The caveat there is it was on very light volume for Hydro 66. It's a very small speculative stock still, less than 100,000 shares traded over the last week. So I look forward to the time when it gets a bit more traction and a bit more awareness in the market and eyeballs on it to see what that stock can really do, and not just on the stock front, but on the business execution front as well. And separately from Hydro 66, I have no fucking idea why Bitcoin is going up. I was talking to Mr. Dines about it this week. He has no idea why it's going up. He thinks it might be an early move into safe havens by some Asian countries that want to do it, wealthy people in Asian countries that want to do it anonymously, but he's scratching his head. He's also scratching his head about commodity prices, why copper hasn't gone up, for example, the way people expected it to recently, especially in the face of the infrastructure announcement that we talked about last week, where Trump and the Democrats agreed to a $2 trillion infrastructure plan. You think there would be some sort of upward movement in the metals, and it just hasn't developed yet. And so it's a head scratcher because logically things should all line up in a row, but in the market it hasn't quite played out that way yet. And that's true of the I'm sorry, I'm rambling. That's true of the gold price of the S&P as well, because like we just said, gold has traded in its range from mid 1260s to 1280s, and the same with the S&P. It can't break out to new highs. The Dow Jones won't confirm it, and so we're waiting for a move one way or the other, whether that comes in the form of a breakout in broad-based equities or on the flip side, a breakdown and then a breakout in metals. So and it's interesting because it's May and it's light volume and people aren't paying attention. So maybe pay a little bit closer attention because the market is certainly looking for direction.
There's a lot of interesting macro issues going on that are affecting everything, frankly, in regards to the base metals not breaking out yet, despite an agreement in principle to discuss a $2.2 trillion infrastructure project here in the U.S. I think, and again, I don't play the politics game on the podcast, right? But I think regardless of how you feel about President Trump, he is slowly but surely going the way of the Fed in terms of credibility when it comes to his deal-making abilities. We have seen over and over highly promotional statements by the administration that end up falling flat on their face. The latest is this China debacle, which, let's call it what it is, imposing tariffs on China and then coming out and issuing a Twitter statement that says, hey, you know what, Americans, this is actually going to bring more wealth in the long term to the country than even a very good deal had we agreed on a deal. If that's the case, then why the fuck negotiate, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a lot. I mean, it's the announcement just came the other day. The market is trying to digest it. The Chinese said they were coming, and then we didn't know. So it's a lot up in the air. Like I say, we're looking for direction. There's no concrete answers yet. We don't know how it's going to play out.
I don't think it's a coincidence that we had a very, very, very weak bond auction, 10-year bond auction this week. I think that was China's way of saying, don't forget we can play this game as well. I do ultimately believe China has more to lose, and there has to be, again, I don't believe that trade wars are sustainable, but I also don't underestimate the ability of this administration to not read the writing on the wall. So it should be interesting. Everything seems like it's on pause, whether it's gold, whether it's bonds, the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow. The only exception right now is cryptos, right? And so that's really interesting. Yeah, I think next week should be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and tariffs is obviously a big issue. Where he was talking about using 232 for Aldos this week, and we all know that, and we, as I think people that follow you and I and listen to this podcast, we know that there's a decision coming down soon for Section 232 for uranium, and he was tweeting tariffs this week. He was on fire tweeting about tariffs, so he's definitely tariff happy. I would just also say that. That's an easy thing to pin everything on, but I think what we're witnessing is a broader churning and something bigger with the market looking to, like I say, just get some direction. It's been they recovered everything it lost since last October. I'm talking about the S&P now, and so it's at crossroads or whatever you want to call it. So might be a bit bigger than tariffs as well. I think what the direction it goes next is important.
Not a coincidence that volatility is back. We saw that in the markets. We saw that manifest itself. So, yeah, it should be interesting. I've continued to say that gold will be a second half of the year story based on geopolitical factors. Those dominoes are setting themselves up pretty well. Let's see what the first one to fall is.
Maybe I can get back into trading some TVIX. That used to be fun.
Hey, TVIX, our old friend. I've had some fun with TVIX in the past. I enjoy the volatility, as you know. So that's always a good time if you have some speculative capital you can afford to lose.
I have to pay more attention to it. I saw it spike the other day, and I was sad I missed it. I got it back on a little watch list. I'm ready.
Yeah, it was like a 25-30% move in a matter of, half an hour or something like that. So, yeah.
It's good work.
Absolutely. If you can get it. Speaking of good work, I think somebody might get fired for the Game of Thrones episode last week. First, before we talk about Cupgate, let's talk about the episode. Can you give us your weekly update, thoughts, reactions? Are they messing this up?
No, I thought it was back to high quality television and storytelling and battle scenes. Daenerys is acting a bit prematurely. She sort of went to attack King's Landing and Cersei with 2 dragons and some ships and acted a bit too quickly, and Cersei was ready. She lost a dragon. Daenerys got a dragon shot out of the sky. Spoiler alert. I'm supposed to say spoiler alert for things like that, but hopefully everybody watched it. Actually, side note, I read a study last week that said that
here's the smart, insightful Nick, everybody.
Half the people don't watch it on Sunday, and sometimes that's me. But then half the people watch it on Monday and half the people watch it on Tuesday, et cetera, et cetera. And so by Thursday, the Thursday after the new episode airs, then 80% of everyone has seen the episode. So hopefully you've seen it by now. But anyway, spoiler alert, and that's sort of the viewing pattern for Game of Thrones, at least from the HBO on-demand statistics and such. So anyway, it was a good episode. We have, I think it's two left now, and yeah, we're gonna fight Cersei. Somebody's got to kill that bitch. So it's gonna be good. We lost a key character at the end of last episode. Cersei was back to her ruthless ways, and this character's last words before the Mountain, who is Cersei's henchman, cut off her head was Dracarys, which means that's like the command that Daenerys gives for the dragons to burn. So she was basically saying, "Burn this bitch," and then Cersei cut her head off, and that was the end of the episode. So tense. And next week we're gonna get back to it. So I think that last week was the best episode of this final season so far, and is why people love the show. Do you want to talk about the cup? I know
we have to talk about the free advertising for Starbucks. I read somewhere it was somewhere in magnitude of like the hundreds of millions of dollars in free advertising as a result of somebody leaving a Starbucks cup on the counter in the scene in last week's episode. So yeah, what in the fuck?
200 million I read in free advertising, and apparently wasn't even Starbucks cup. So serious, not serious, right? Somebody forgets a cup, and it went viral. I woke up Sunday morning. I didn't see it it was on a table. They were in a hall having a party, and in the show, and of course the show is back in sort of dark ages, medieval times or whatever. And somebody left a Starbucks cup. Well, it's not a Starbucks cup. It was just a disposable coffee cup on the table. But yeah, I don't know. You want me to ramble about it for a second? One, just
Yep.
it goes to show the power of brands, because everybody just assumed that it was a Starbucks cup and ran with it, even though it turns out not to be a Starbucks cup. And so
I'm going to keep calling it a Starbucks cup, the power of brands.
right. In a serious, not serious thing, it's very insightful into the power of building strong, instantly recognizable, and associative brands. So good on Starbucks for that. Is somebody going to get fired? I don't know. And I've seen like a lot of people on the late night shows, not that I watch them, but I see them trending the next morning, or I see them in a newsletter I read or something, have been having fun with it as well. Like Sir Davos was on some night show the other night and was saying that it belonged to Daenerys. He was like, she drinks way too much coffee. And then somebody interviewed Daenerys, and he said she was like, well, he's a son of a bitch. It wasn't me. I don't even drink coffee. I drink tea. So it sort of generates like friendly banter back and forth between the actors and stuff. So it's been fun. Good stuff.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. Yeah, nothing else I can add to that. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was funny. I thought Starbucks did a good job of owning it as if it was a Starbucks cup. Yeah, funny things all the way around, right?
Yeah, good vibes. Good stuff.
Good stuff. Let's talk nuclear. Back to the markets a little bit. We talked about Section 232 here in the U.S. Regardless of how that plays out, I believe that will lay a foundation for the utilities coming back to the market once they have clarity on what they are working with. So with that being said, I know you wanted to talk about France delaying their nuclear cutbacks that had been scheduled, and I think they're having a come to Jesus moment, right?
Yeah, it just underscores things. A main point about nuclear that I and others have said for a long time, and that it's clean and it's base load. And if you want to fight climate change, if you want to reduce emissions, if that's your goal, then nuclear has to be a key part of the mix. And country after country is finding that out. The latest one is France, who, granted, was already heavily reliant on nuclear. They're a very nuclear nation. But even so, they have a lot of nuclear capacity, but they can't cut it back. They're saying they had wanted to make some cutbacks in their nuclear generation, and they're not going to be able to do that. They say they could make the cuts, but if they want to make their climate goals as well, if they want to make their carbon reduction goals, then they can't get rid of the nuclear plants, because there's no other renewables that can take their place. Because why? Because uranium is the only clean form of baseload power that exists in the world.
Yep.
So they would have to either build natural gas plants to make up the slack, or there'd be blackouts. So again, nuclear or the lights go out, and that's not going away anytime soon. And neither is the coming uranium bull market that is a consequence of that, because countries all over the world need and want nuclear. Some that have it still want it, and some that don't want more, and they're all going to need uranium. And while we are in a prolonged and protracted uranium bear market, that's not going to last forever. And there are many things afoot that we've talked about on here that I won't spend a lot of time recapping, but everything from major mines closing to nobody making money at this price, to the secondary supply eroding, to the demand rising, to um, new funds being created that are taking supply off the market, to Kazakhstan's arm trying to go public and the repercussions that come with that. All the chips are lining up for a bull market, and the price, of course, has stayed lower longer than anyone can imagine, still below $30 a pound. But that doesn't change the thesis. It just sort of pushes the timeline down the road a bit. But the fact remains that utilities still have to come back in and contract, and the fact remains that Cameco says it's going in the market to buy to meet its contractual obligations, and that's going to take further supply off the market. And meanwhile, they say they're fine with their big mines shut down, and so it's going to happen in some time. And Trump has until July 14th. You know, government's government, of course. It could be later than that, but that's the published date. That's 90 days after Commerce submitted their report, and that's for him to make a decision on whether to honor their request to make some sort of either tariff or production quota in favor of U.S. domestic uranium production or supply. And everyone's got an opinion on that, of course, what that would look like and could look like. And um, I don't know what that is going to be, but some of those opinions are, it's just the U.S. with no exemptions, or it's the US and we get some friendly exemptions, like Canada will be exempt from any restrictions in Australia, or it could be, and I just covered them, tariffs or quotas or a combination of both. So no one knows, but the bottom line here is that it's another thing in favor of a uranium bull market, and it's a thing that's going to get major news outlets and people that normally don't talk about uranium talking about uranium, because it's going to have to be covered by major news outlets, because it's going to be a major, presidential decision.
Agreed. Well
And,
said.
and that's all good for the sector and the stocks, and that's it.
And let's be clear, there are not very many options when it comes to production ready, permitted US producers and developers. There's a very clear list that if you subscribe to, is it Nick's Notebook or is it Early Advantage? It's Early Advantage, right? You can get the list from
Yeah,
Nick.
that's
There you
early
go.
advance.
That's my shameless plug for Early Advantage. Subscribe now to
Uh,
Nick Hodges' Early Advantage and get your list of the three top. Is it three?
three.
There you go. Three top companies with U.S. exposure that are going to go much, much higher, hopefully. Disclaimer. Do your own due
Thanks,
diligence.
Gerardo. We got to pay the bills. Bizarro World is free.
Bizarro World is free. I promise you, you will get your money's worth, people. Let's talk prescription drug prices that will now have to be shown on your television screens when you watch. Can we talk about that a bit? I know you wanted to kind of go over that a little bit, and it kind of segues right into my Burger King conversation I want to have.
Yes, because I want to hear about Burger King Emo Meals. I don't know what they are, but I want to hear about them. Just real quick, on the prescription drug thing. So we all know everything that you have to do when you advertise a drug, all the things they have to say at the end, the side effects and all that kind of stuff that make those commercials so silly. But what I wanted to say is just an unpopular opinion, or maybe it's popular, I don't know, but something that I believed for a while, and might offend even some friends of mine who are in the drug ad business. But I don't think, in general, that drugs should be allowed to be advertised on television. It's just a
Agreed.
belief I have. I don't think that you should go to your doctor seeking a solution for X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. Like you shouldn't go to your doctor and say, "Hey, I saw this medicine on television. I think I want that, or I think I have the symptoms that meet that." That's not how it should work. You should go to your doctor because you're experiencing symptoms, describe those symptoms to your doctor, and through an evaluation of those symptoms combined with whatever other kind of empirical test, blood test, etc., he comes to a diagnosis, and then you go over the treatment options. It shouldn't be you work the other way around, and I think it's just a fundamental thing that's wrong in this country, and is responsible for, not entirely responsible for, but certainly partially responsible for drug addiction issues, et cetera. So anyway, there's a new law that says if a drug is going to cost more than $35, they also have to add that into the fine language at the end. And I just wanted to say that's cool, but that doesn't really matter. It's just going to speed up the fine print at the bottom, right? I mean, they're just going to talk faster and the fine print's going to be smaller, and it's not going to matter. I just wanted to say that my opinion is you shouldn't be able to advertise drugs. That's all.
Agreed. And I'll take that one step further and say that I don't believe doctors should be compensated by pharmaceutical companies, whether it's, on the books or off the books, for pushing shit on people that, oftentimes they don't need. So I'll leave that there. You can agree or disagree, but I think all of us know people or have people close to us that have gone through, one form or another of addiction. And we all can probably agree, whether we disagree on the causes or the treatments there, we can agree that that's not a fun scenario to go through for anybody involved.
And they're just so corny. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I like watching them for the corny factor. Like this couple's not doing this shit. Come on.
Pardon me while I laugh at that, in the words of the great poet Jay-Z, Mr. Sean Carter. So that segues perfectly into my Burger King Emo Meals. I thought this was a prank. I thought this was like something from The Onion or a one of these internet spoofs. So much so that I had to Google it. We will put a link up. These Emo Meals are absolutely real. So it turns out that Burger King thought that the best way to counter the popularity of the Happy Meal was for them to roll out a collection of unhappy meals because, quote, no one is happy all the time. Now, you don't know anything about this yet, do you, Nick?
I don't.
I'm going to love your reaction to this. This is going to be so good. So throughout the month, and this is the cover, this is the bullshit cover that Burger King took, right? Burger King says they are teaming with Mental Health America to roll out 5 unhappy meals that will be available so that people that are going through a rough time can eat their feelings. So here are the names of the meals. And again, I thought this was a spoof. The meals are called a pissed meal when they're angry, a blue meal, of course, for when you're sad, a salty meal for those bitter moments, a DGAF, a don't give a fuck meal, and the 5th choice is a yas meal when you just can't contain your excitement or want to speak like one of the real housewives of whatever. These are real meals. They're going to be sold at select Burger King locations near you. Seattle, Miami, LA, New York, Austin, of course, because why not? Each one will have its own different colored box, signifying each emotional muse, according to the article I'm looking at right now. What a crock of shit, man. I mean, an I don't give a fuck meal? You know who they're bitching to, right?
Yeah, I do, and I don't give a fuck. What I was going to say is first of all, I'm sad about the meatless Whoppers, and so I might need an emo meal because I'm salty about the meatless Whoppers. And so I think Burger King is like, putting people in this self-fulfilling loop of making them sad and then feeding them sad meals. But
what's going to happen when this is someone's last meal? Sorry, it went dark. Go ahead, Nick. Stupid shit I think about.
What drew you to this? What drew you to the emo meals? Who do you think they're marketing to?
I was on Twitter and I saw this little sponsored ad thing, and I thought it was hilarious because I thought it was like a spoof, like a late night show spoof, or you know, I thought it
Uh-huh.
was fake. I didn't think it was true, so I clicked on it. And like the commercial looked so legit, I thought, man, this might be a real thing. So then I Googled it and I looked at the Burger King website, and sure enough, it was a real thing. So I was just like, man, aren't there better ways to like cater to the 2 a.m. high kids that are driving around looking for as much food for as little money as possible?
Mm, They normally go to Taco Bell, don't they? I think I'm sad now. I'm sad for the state of marketing humanity. I need an emo meal.
Burger King Emo Meals. A real thing, folks. I'll put the link up. Yeah, I think that's a failed trolling effort by Burger King. Come on, man. And then you're only going to do it for a month, so it was really effective, right? Then why not just have these be a permanent part of your menu?
Well, they'll bring it back if it sells well, or they'll make it a seasonal thing or a rotating promotion, or they'll come up with names and let you vote on them to drive social media traffic.
Agreed. You want to hear some more of my childish humor?
Yeah.
The Vietnamese are being accused by the U.S. of manipulating their dong.
Well, we all do that sometimes.
The Treasury Department has said that Vietnam has met all three criteria that it uses to test for currency interventions. For those that don't have a childish sense of humor like myself, the dong is the official Vietnamese currency. I just thought that the headline was hilarious. And I also thought it segued real well into you wanted to talk about the Australian $50 piece. Note.
Yeah, so I'm sure you might have heard about this by now, but Australia apparently issued 46 million new $50 Australian dollar notes that had three typos on there.
Yep.
The word responsibility was spelled wrong
Misspelled.
three times. And nobody noticed for a while, apparently. I think it's been a couple of months since the bills were released. And just the other day, somebody, I don't even remember the entire story, called into a morning show or told somebody who told somebody. And then sure enough, all these bills, 46 million of them have the word spelled wrong three times. And, take that story and run with it, right? I mean, how metaphorical is that you have a central banker, a government who prints dollars who can't even print them correctly, right? So yeah, I mean, I just thought it was very topical and representative of some of the things that we talk about when we talk about fiat currency and money printing and the fallibility of government. And this just sort of embodies them all. The government can't even spell responsibility right. And the word itself that was spelled wrong, right? Responsibility, fiscal responsibility, monetary policy responsibility. I just thought it was all too good not to mention.
So good on so many levels. I mean, at the end of the day, what is money, right? It's a
Exactly.
piece of paper. We went over this in one of the first few episodes of Bizarro World, where we talked about the cost of printing the various denominations of the currency, right? And so, it's if you have faith in your government, yay. And one day it'll all seem like one big joke, which is exactly kind of where we're at right now. Buy a little gold, everybody. Buy a little gold. That's all I can say.
I was just going to say, and meanwhile, we learned this week, and I'm going to forget the number off the top of my head, but a certain percentage of the gold on Earth, we learned this week from fancy scientists, came from the explosion or collision of two stars several billion years ago before the Earth was even formed. And so that's not humans chopping down trees and putting fancy graphics on them.
Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. What can we talk about the IRS being recognized or recognizing the Satanic Temple as a church? That was a Freudian
What?
slip because I would officially like to recognize the IRS as a Satanic Temple. But anyway, run with it, Nick.
You and me both.
Fuck those guys.
Oh God, the IRS. The good thing is they're severely understaffed, and they're not auditing a lot of people. And
Even when I try to pay them, I can't get them on the phone. It's tough,
right,
man.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, IRS, death and taxes. Gosh, but anyway, this was one of the one of the better stories I've seen in a while, just for my personal worldview and how I see things and my sense of humor and what I think is funny. So you got this satanic cult that's not really a satanic cult. This is more of a satirical political movement, but they've been
You think they eat emo
for the
meals? You think they'll be buying some emo meals?
I don't think they're sad. No, I think they're happy about this outcome. I think they might head on over to Mickey D's because since 2017, they've been trying to get tax exempt or recognized as religion by the IRS, and they finally got that. And they really don't want tax exempt status or whatever, but it's important because now they're recognized as a religion, and so they can go to court as a religion on behalf of defending religious rights and religious equality. And that's what this is really all about, right? Um, it's a group that is basically making fun of religion and government and religion's relationship. And so what they're doing is now they're using this status as a officially recognized religion by the IRS to do things like lobby for a prayer to be said to Satan at every government function where there's a prayer to God or Jesus, or on every public place or government building where there is a religious statue, like, say, of a saint or Jesus or Mary or an angel, they want there to be a statue of the devil or of Lucifer. And so,
Or in
uh,
Austin, a statue of Willie Nelson?
yeah, just so just very good, right? I mean, just taking it really seriously in one sense, in that you're going to the length of court battles and hiring lawyers, etc., to get recognized as a religion by the IRS, but then just really funny. And again, like the mistake on the bill. What is religion? Why is it important? Why is the government saying prayers if they're not supposed to be? Et cetera, et cetera. So just a really good story for me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's talk about the bird. This gave me hope, man. I don't know why it gave me hope, but let's talk about the bird that went extinct and then evolved into existence again. So, and I'm going to mess up the pronunciation on this because I didn't bother to fact check it, but the story is true. It's legit. So there's a bird that's called an Aldabra white-throated rail. It's a flightless bird that lived in the Indian Ocean, right? And so this is the first known example of birds that shows that it went extinct and came back twice after first going extinct some 136,000 years ago. So
So how to come back? I didn't see this story. How to come back?
so this was published in the Zoological Journal of the Linnean Society, right? How to get that right. And it says that it's the rail is an example of a rarely observed phenomenon called iterative evolution, in which and I'm just reading verbatim here from their little press release that my geeky self was reading. The same ancestral lineage produces parallel offshoot species at different points in time. So, meaning that near identical species can pop up multiple times in different eras and places, even if the past iterations have gone extinct. And I just found that fascinating. The first time that the bird went extinct, it happened 136,000 years ago, as I mentioned, by an inundation event, is what they called it, right? And so the rising sea levels wiped out the first iteration of the bird.
They should have shut down all the coal plants, those that they had burning 136,000 years ago.
That's hilarious. So it was pretty interesting. I mean, they say that iterative evolution has been observed in animals like sea cows and sea turtles, but for whatever reason, this bird, this rail it's the only one that has demonstrated this phenomenon. So I thought that it was pretty neat. Pretty neat. What's not so neat, it also showed the effect of changing sea levels on extinction, right? So that wasn't so neat, considering that our sea levels are rising and, eventually we all go the way of the birds. But if you're an optimist like me, maybe we go the way of the birds, and 137,000 years later, you'll have somebody doing a podcast that 40 people listening to, ranting and raving about random shit, right?
Sounds like a glitch in the Matrix to me.
Hey, I'm with Elon on the simulation thing, man. The more I pay attention, the more things I catch on a daily basis. Either I'm
The
going
bird.
crazy in my older age, or the thing is real, man. The thing is real. I was listening to the Tesla conference call a couple of weeks ago, and they were asking him about his thoughts on the simulation and the fact that we could be that, and he was talking about autonomous vehicles, and he talked about the necessity to actually have the data and why Tesla's so valuable, because they have real-time data, real miles on autonomous vehicles, as to where everybody else just has a model of what should be happening. And so his point was a simple one. He said, well, if a model could predict everything that was going to happen, that in itself would explain the fact that we are just a simulation, because obviously we would have figured this out already. And if that's the case, then we're fucked. Like, this is all a game, right? So I thought about that, and then I went and watched The Matrix and had a glass of wine, and felt kind of smart, then felt kind of dumb, and was just amused by it all at the end of the day.
That's how that goes. You think you figure something out, and then you're like, wait, what?
Yep, but the wine was good.
So just real quick, because I have to, and I've talked about this before, because I didn't see the story about the bird this week, because what was making headlines this week was a hypothetical report about how many species we're about to lose. Not that we're losing them, not that they're gone yet. They didn't even identify exactly which animals were going to go extinct. Some scientists just said we're going to
Scare the
lose
shit out of you.
this many species going forward, this many amphibians, this many mammals, etc. And so that was what made all the headlines this week, because it related to climate change, right? Not the one that came back. None of the major news outlets talked about the the species that miraculously came back over 136,000 years, and how climate change didn't affect that or prevent that species from coming back, because that doesn't fit the narrative. And also, as you just said, the bird originally went extinct, and I sort of cut you off a little bit with a joke, but seriously, it went extinct because of rising sea levels 136,000 years ago. So think about that, folks. If we're attributing rising sea levels to terrible, terrible, terrible human beings and our capitalistic actions now, then why the fuck were sea levels rising 136,000 years ago?
Because everything is cyclical, people. We are not saying that climate change isn't real. We are saying that the people that are looking to bamboozle you into giving your tax dollars to support their fraudulent cause are not real. Climate change, obviously, like everything, is cyclical. It is happening. Yes, there are things as humans that we can do to offset some of the damage, and we absolutely should. Just like we should be good neighbors and be productive members of our community and so on and so forth. But that's very different from, plans that think that taxation is the way to solve all of this and the way to stem all of this. I think there's better, smarter approaches. I appreciate the dialogue. I just don't like when it's not genuine, right?
Yeah, and now I want to talk about AOC and Bernie's 15% cap on credit card interest rates. What did you think about that?
I'm kind of two ways about that, right? At first, I say it's a free market if we change the cap to 15%, and now somebody that maybe has less than stellar credit can't get credit that they would have got if they could pay 26%. Who are we helping, right? Who are we really helping? Wouldn't we be better off as a society, as a country, educating people through financial literacy in school is about, debt and assets and liabilities and what that really looks like. I mean, I have, a 21-year-old and a 16-year-old and a soon to be 11-year-old. And at best, each of them in school got maybe one or two financial literacy courses. And, we happen to be lucky enough to live in a very, very good school district. And this was very rudimentary, basic stuff that they were being taught. So first off, again, I think there's smarter approaches than capping the rates. But then the second half of me kicked in, and the part of my brain that says, okay, banks can borrow from the Fed window at very minimal rates. I'm talking, percentages of a percent, right?
Right.
And then they don't lend. But when they do lend, they want to mark it up, fuck, from 0 to 26%. There should be a happy medium there. There should be some, a place in the middle where people meet and banks can be profitable, but they have to lend if they're going to go to the Fed and borrow at a certain amount. They should be able to turn that around, still be profitable, and still make it to where credit is available to people that have demonstrated themselves to be responsible. So I'm kind of back and forth on that. Again, I think there's probably a good conversation to be had there. I'm curious to hear what you think.
I understand why they would propose it, and I understand why people would vote for it, and I'll give you my opinion in a second. But first, I have to tell you about a meme that I saw about, you mentioned financial literacy in school, and they don't. The U.S. school system just simply doesn't teach financial literacy or computer coding literacy, which are both absolutely essential in today's world. And they just don't do anything. So I saw this meme that was um, somebody talking to public schools, and it was like, "Hey, can we get some financial literacy courses?" And the school said, "Piccolo." And the guy said, "But maybe like how to write a check or balance a checkbook or start a retirement tax deferred account." And the schools were like, "Hot cross buns, Piccolo." And he just kept asking them about getting some financial literacy courses, and the school system just kept wanting him to play the piccolo. And I was dying.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Funny.
Not so hilarious.
Everybody plays the piccolo. Everybody's got to play the piccolo in public school. It's so stupid.
That's where we're at. This is your education system, America.
Hot cross buns.
Man.
No, like you said it. That's my opinion. About the people that aren't going to get credit. So anybody that's getting those high rates now, at least they have some credit, and Mr. Market will show them that if you're going to cap the rates at 15, fine. But then those people, they're going to have no rates at all, and that means no credit at all, and that means for lots and lots and lots and lots of families in this country, no source of day-to-day spending, and for groceries, and in many cases for emergency spending. So again, I get why they're doing it, but you're not going to be able to, manipulate the market in that way. We'll show you who's boss.
Yeah. And again, it speaks to the great wealth inequality in this country, all over the world, frankly, but in this country, it's so pronounced, right? You look at, we've talked about this on the podcast. You look at the cost of daycare, and then you look at what wages are for, your average person that's got, basic skills, and those two just don't match up. And then you look at, the credit opportunities that are available to people that have been able to build that credit up and have shown themselves to be responsible. And then, people that are just getting started. I have a 21-year-old that's just kind of, got his first apartment, got a couple of roommates, he's working full time. I'm teaching him about credit and how to be responsible with it. But man, if he didn't have my support, I really, I really don't know how well he would fare in the world if my wife and I hadn't been able to really teach him a lot about these things, because he sure in the heck wasn't learning them in school. So yeah, definitely opportunities and a lot to do, and man, one day, right?
Well, tough out there. That's why family is important. That's why successful families continue to be successful families, and why your parents are so important. So say happy Mother's Day to your mom.
Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. What do you got going on this weekend, Nick?
Oh gosh, I'm going to smoke me a pork butt tomorrow. I'm trying to kill a turkey. I've been chasing these little fuckers around for 2 weeks now, and
You're chasing them for 2 years.
I was up this morning at 4:20. I had 4 of them gobbling, 4 separate ones gobbling, and they just would not come onto my property, and I don't have permission to chase them off my property, so I just have to listen to them gobble from like 200 yards away. And so hopefully I can call one in close enough.
It's like being at a strip club and you see a dancer you like and she won't come over your way, and you're trying to play it cool and you're back in the corner. You're like, damn it.
Dude, oh God. And I'm just stroking my turkey call over here.
That conversation started with Happy Mother's Day. You realize that, right, Nick? We told you people you get your money's worth. This is the high quality content that you get from Bizarro World.
She knows I turkey hunt.
Uh, that's important. That's important. Consent is important.
How about you? What are you guys doing?
We're gonna get together. Frankly, we're gonna do what we do every weekend. We're gonna get together here at home, cook some food, maybe jump in the backyard, jump in the pool. My sister will come over, my nieces, my nephew. We're a close knit family. We're a very, very tight knit group. So we do this almost every weekend. So we're just gonna get together and celebrate the amazing woman in our lives and just have an awesome weekend all the way around. Oh, we're gonna see Pikachu too. I'm excited about Pikachu. My 21-year-old is excited about Pikachu. My wife is to the moon about Pikachu. So Pikachu has been a very important little character in our lives. Every one of our kids grew up watching Pikachu, and so they can't wait. We can't wait. That should be fun.
I've been reading that it's supposed to be one of the best springs and summers and years for the box office in a long time, with Avengers still going strong, which I know you were excited about. I'm
Saw it,
interested in
loved
that.
it.
I,
Saw it
I'm
and
interested in
loved
the
it.
economics, not the movies. I don't watch them. I've been seeing that people are excited about Pikachu. Disney has Aladdin coming out. Disney has Lion King coming out, and so lots and lots of things
Yeah,
coming
they better not mess
soon.
Aladdin or Lion King up, man. Those are two of my favorite growing up. I still have a crush on Jasmine, so she better live up to her cartoon glory.
Well, I was gonna say, and I just rewatched Lion King not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago. It was on, and I tried to get my two, almost 3-year-old to watch it, and she did for about 20 minutes, but didn't have a lot of interest. But it held up well. I remembered it well, Scar and Mufasa, etc. And so I get why Disney wants to do it because it's a proven moneymaker, and they know that remakes make money. But I'm with you. I hope they do it justice, and I also hope that my oldest daughter is almost 3. She'll be 3 the beginning of June, and it's almost time to start doing. She doesn't like sit through movies yet, but soon, and I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Awesome, awesome. That's always a glorious time. That age and the new things that you're able to do and the conversations you're able to have. It's really neat and really a privilege to be able to do so. Right?
That's right.
Awesome. What else you got on your mind, Nick? Is that it? Should we wrap it up? Wish everybody happy Mother's Day. And, by the time you guys get this, it'll be Monday. So we hope you had a great Mother's Day. Anything else on your mind? I think we're going to skip the stock of the week this week on my end of it. Do you have anything?
No, I could do it next week. It's not important. Yeah, that's it. Happy Mother's Day. Good for me.
Absolutely. If you have a great mom, hug her, love her. If you have great family, the importance of family, we've talked about that over and over in this podcast. I think with the volatility that we're going to see, not just financially, put that to the side, but just as a society, it's going to become increasingly important that you value and treasure the people around you, whether they're family by blood or family in action. Love those people. Tell them you love them. Give them a hug and be kind to each other.
And if you don't come to my house, I'll buy you an emo meal.
Episode 18 of Bizarro World. Have a great week, everybody.
See ya.